over here just a little bit. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans chapter 1 and verse 16, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it is the righteousness of God revealed." That's the reason that we take the gospel into all of the world, because of what those verses say and many other verses as well. It is the power of God. It's not the power of us as individuals. It's the power of God that is the gospel. And it's for Jew and Greek, and of course in that context there it meant for everyone. For those that were Jews, for those that were Gentiles, every single person in this world. So we take the gospel to the people around us. We try to reach out as much as we possibly can, as Daniel prayed that this week that we might be able to somehow reach someone in this community or in the surrounding area with the gospel of Christ, with our example in some way. But also, of course, the church in the United States has been blessed materially. We live in obviously the richest country in the world, and so as Christians, in this century and also in the century before, the Christians, the church, the Lord's church, was very concerned about helping people in other nations also hear the gospel. Many times places where maybe the gospel hasn't gone or has been left behind in some way, or simply the brethren there do not have the resources that we have. So I just want to give a little bit of a report this evening about the things that happened when we were in Peru just in December, last month I guess it was now. But of course, the Lord's commission. It's the Great Commission. It's the Lord's commission of going to teach all nations, go into all the world. Jesus said in Acts chapter 1 and verse 8 that they would begin in Jerusalem, and ultimately the gospel would be taken to the whole world. And then a very important passage is in Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 21, "Unto him be the glory in the church." That has, of course, reference to the church itself and the church doing the will of God and the gospel being preached through the church. So that's the reason that we go, and that's the reason that you go, near or far or whatever it might be. So I want to express my appreciation, to this congregation, to the elders, and for always the interest that you have in taking the gospel, for your prayers, the desire to see the gospel preached, the desire to see the gospel preached in other places, and to go into all the world. And so I really do appreciate it on a personal level. And also I know that the places where we go and have gone, the brethren there, whether the preachers or brethren in general, are very thankful to you for allowing me and others, and for supporting that work as well, because it, of course, takes financial support as a part of that work as well. So where do we go? We went in December. We went to Peru. Peru is located in South America. It was actually, I was not looking forward to it all that much. I don't know why, but I'd never really worked with the preacher. I knew the preacher, but I'd never really worked with him. And so I had a little bit of, just a little bit of, I don't know, I wonder what's going to happen. And how's this going to go? Those are kind of questions that we often ask ourselves when we're working in a new situation. And it was a long flight. It's a long ways down there. It's almost like going to Europe, but not quite. The time zone differences are not that great. In fact, it's just one time zone away from us, so really no adjustment in that sense. But it was a long flight, and there were a few complications with flights as things go. But everything just went really well. God blessed the trip. He blessed us with safety and blessed the preaching of the gospel as well. It's bordered by Brazil, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Chile. Lima is the capital, and that's where we went to, the capital of Peru, Lima. And it has a population of about 10 million people. I didn't see everyone, but I saw a lot of them. We drove from one end of the town to the next one day, and it is unbelievable, the amount of people. It's unbelievable, the traffic and the way they drive, and the jamming of cars together, and it's just, I'm talking mirrors that close, and you're almost sideswiping people, and I think every car down there has dents in it. But it's a large town. 10 million people, and they need the gospel. And there are congregations down there, and we were able to work with one of them. December is summer, so when we went down, a little bit of a change. There were no leaves on the trees here. It's all brown, kind of. The grass has already turned brown. Go down there, and it's summer. And so it had, just kind of a strange little feeling to it. But Lima, being on the Pacific coast, it only has an average temperature of about 75 degrees high and an average low of 64. So it's a very moderate climate. And that's about what it was when we were there, just right in that area. It is, I believe, if I've read correctly, one of the driest capital city in the world. They get 1/2 inch of rain per year. So it is a desert. It looks like a desert with 10 million people in one place. So, I think I already put summer is there, December summer is there twice. I don't know how I did that, but okay. That's where we went. These are the people that traveled. Of course, whenever you go to a Spanish-speaking country or whatever country, you've got to have people that are translators or people that can help you in some way. So having gone to Mexico, I know a lot of people down there and a lot of Christians, and some of them are bilingual, some of them can help us. We'll just go, you know who I am, and then of course there's Lois. Lois has relatives here. She's related to the Browns. She lives in Kansas City, and Lois did teaching of children. Behind Lois is John Griffin. You would probably know him as well. John did teaching, preaching publicly, and also as we did some house-to-house teaching as well. There's Marlene. She's from Mexico. She has just graduated. She's from Matamoros. She just graduated from the university there. She's going to be a doctor. She's going to Toronto. I think she went this week. And she's going to be doing her residency in Toronto in Canada, and she hopes to live there, and she'd really like to live in Quebec. She's a very talented young woman. Then there's, right behind her is Michael Richardson. He's from Iowa, and you've seen him in some pictures. I've known him for probably 35 years or more. Cecilia, she lives in Monterey. She also is attending I'm not sure if she graduated, but I think she's graduated from the university. She studied music. Her father's a preacher there in one of the congregations in Monterey. They're all bilingual, by the way. Then husband and wife is Jaime and Frida and Jaime. They live in another part of Mexico, Querétaro. And Jaime is retired. He's a young man, but he's retired. He had a very good job in Mexico. And so they were able to go with us and work in Peru, and a very, very helpful in that they could teach. They could also work in translating, helping John and Michael and Lois along as well. So those are the ones that were able to go this time. The work basically involved all of these areas, going door to door, although I didn't really do much of that. There were many Bible studies, some Bible studies pre-set up before we got there, and so I was able to be involved in that. There were in-home Bible studies, that is in people's homes. There were afternoon Bible studies or school for children at the church building. There were Bible classes, and then we had a gospel meeting each and every day as well. So these are a lot of the things that kept us busy throughout the day, from morning until night. Okay? This is the preacher. This is Juan and Yolanda, and they are working with the Rosales Church of Christ in Lima. This is a picture of the building there, and then this was the announcement that we took down there that was printed by the Hortons. So we're thankful for that as well. And they're doing a good work, I believe, there. Juan is very active in teaching the gospel to other people as far as both publicly and privately. Okay, we were there a couple of days, and then this kind of struck us. On the left, your left, it's what I received. Receive emails from the State Department. I've gotten, over the last several years, when I go to another country, I will register with the State Department so that if there's any kind of a problem, they know exactly where we are, the address of the hotel, or the address of the people's house, or whatever it is. And they have my phone number and everything, and they can contact us, email address. And so they sent out this email during the day. And the problem was the president of Peru tried to disband the Congress and basically become a dictator in their country and put a curfew on it. The curfew, I think it said, it says starting at 22. Well, I think that's 7 o'clock in the evening. Well, that wasn't going to work for us. How could we do a gospel meeting if they have a curfew? So there was a few hours there. We were like, well, what are we going to do? And they were starting making plans. Well, maybe we'll just meet at 5 o'clock and all these kind of things. It was kind of a little in an upheaval for a little while, even though we continued to work throughout the day. And this is, on this side, is a news story that I think I took a picture of it off the internet or something like that, but telling about how serious it was with roads being blocked and things of that nature. So you never know what can happen when you go into a foreign country. You're no longer in the United States. You no longer have that kind of protection or laws, and they have different governments and things. So sometimes things might happen. But we were blessed. And it ended up not affecting our work because the president was arrested and he was put in jail, and the curfew went away, and the Congress put someone else, the vice president, in power. So that's what it was. We did, hitting the streets of Lima, as I said, I didn't really hit the streets that much, but it did, other than walking from different houses. But as far as knocking on doors, I really didn't do that much. Some did, but these are just some photos as we went out on there in Lima, Peru. Another photo of going down the street. Actually, on that one, I remember we were going to a Bible study. We were all going to this Bible study because this family had, and I want to say a family, I'm not talking just like 3 people. I'm talking about a grandfather, his wife, 2 of their children, the son-in-law, and 6 grandchildren were all present. And then they invited us back to eat one day, just have another Bible study and eat. So it was quite an occasion. In many of these Bible studies, we're not talking just with one person, we're talking with families, a lot of people. Okay? In-home Bible studies, these are just some photos of different places we were. The one in the middle, I remember the man was actually a mariner. He's retired, but he was in the shipping all around the world and had some stories to tell about that. But we had a Bible study there with him and his wife, and I think one of their daughters and some of the grandchildren as well that were there at the time. More in-home Bible studies. You can see just different ones, different situations and locations. Sometimes John was teaching and I was translating John. He was, he's teaching the Bible study to the people, something relating to becoming a Christian, because these people were not Christians, and so we're trying to help them to come to the knowledge of the truth. And those are just some of the photos in that. And a couple more photos of different places we were. And as you can see, as I mentioned, we're not talking about Bible studies with just 1 or 2 people. Well, generally, there were a whole group of people there. I remember in one of them, they invited their neighbors. It was an apartment building, and I think we were like on the 3rd floor of this apartment building, and they invited some of their neighbors from the 2nd floor. And then when we left, they said, well, there's these other people that want us to study on another floor, and so we were able to go down and to study with them as well. Another area that we did go to, and we call it the mountain because Lima is on the coast, but it immediately arises into, there's some mountainous areas. And a lot of the poorer people I don't know if they turn the land over to them, what they do, but they just build their houses on the side of these mountains. And so, there's just lots of houses up there. And we'd go up to the mountains too, to the mountain, which is really still part of the city, and we'd have a Bible study with somebody. And here, on the lower level, John is teaching. There were at least 2 or 3 people there. I think there were 4 people present there that were not Christians. In that situation, there were a couple of neighbors and a daughter of one of the people, and I don't remember every single situation. But we would have to walk up there to get there. The picture on the left, on the lower level, is we'd have to walk up this narrow path. Because, these houses, there's no streets up there. It's just like walking a narrow path to get to this house and that house. And sometimes there's other houses down here. So it's quite a unique situation. This study on the left was with a grandmother and her grandson, and the little granddaughter. Although the granddaughter really didn't participate in the study, she kind of just played around, did whatever she wanted to do. But the grandmother and the grandson were involved in the study. After we left and came home, I don't know, maybe through 4 or 5, 6 days later, the young man that you see on the left there was baptized. And that's the preacher baptizing him. They have this little baptistry at the church building. So God gives the increase. Many times, sometimes the question is, well, how many baptisms were there? And in many cases, none while we were there, because the people are still being taught. They're in the process of being taught. So when the preacher or some of the members go back and follow up with them and continue to teach them, then God gives the increase. And so we had many, many opportunities of going into homes, and I don't know what the total number was, just with John and I. Now, John, one day, he was very sick. John usually doesn't get sick. He eats what he wants. But something happened to John, and John got very sick. And John stayed in the bed all day. And John, I'd never seen him so sick. But he was pretty bad for about a day and a half, with vomiting and those kind of things. So he had evidently gotten a hold of some kind of bacteria, somehow down there. But so we had a lot of those in-home Bible studies. But we had studies on the mountain. We had studies in homes. We also had studies at the church building. This lady that I'm studying with right there, it wasn't because anybody knocked on her door. She was walking by the church building, and she saw the activity, and she just kind of walked in and said, What's going on? I would like to know what's happening. And so they said, well, we're studying the Word of God. That wasn't really what we were doing. There were studies there going on. And so that afternoon, she just said, okay, well, I'll study. And so we sat down and studied the Bible with her. On the picture on the right, those are some of the Peruvian brethren, the men that are studying with another lady that just came by the church building. And so it's kind of a different culture. There's nobody probably here would wander by the church building and say, what's happening tonight? I think I want to go in there and maybe study the Bible. We would hope that would happen, but it doesn't. It's probably not a reality. But down there, I guess it happens. I saw it happen and was able to study with that particular lady. Also, one of the things that we had in the afternoon were Bible classes. I wasn't involved in this part. There is Marlene teaching, and Lois was teaching, and Cecilia was teaching, and Frida was teaching. The ladies from Mexico, well, Lois is from the United States, but they were all able to teach the children and have Bible classes with not only the children of the congregation, but also some of the children that lived in the area as well. Also, there were teen classes. Jaime was able to teach, and because he speaks Spanish, and it was just easier for him to communicate, he was able to have a class with the teenagers every afternoon as well. His wife is up there, Frida. She's teaching a ladies' class, and Michael's teaching a class as well, and I was translating at that particular time. So there were lots of opportunities for lots of teaching. That's the reason we went there, and so that the gospel could be preached. And that's basically what we were able to do, of course. God blessed us in that way. We were able to. There was preaching going on, as you think you saw in the last slide. All of the men who went preached. When Jaime preached on the last Sunday night in Spanish, and then I translated it back to English for the Americans that were there as well, which was, I guess, helpful unto them. This is Lima. As you can see, it looks kind of like what you might picture the Middle East. If you're thinking about the Middle East, or some of you maybe have been into the Middle East region where it's just kind of a desert area, that's kind of what it looks like, but it's Lima, Peru, everywhere, just that way. These are some of the sights you'd see around Lima. They have their famous Inca Cola, and that was served to us quite often. These are little motorcycle type things. They're all over the place. They're like little taxis. They call them, the word for bull in Spanish is toro, we would say. And so they call them torito. They're little bulls. They just haul people around. They're like these little taxis. And they are running all over the place. I mean, they just go all the time. That's how people get around. I guess it's a very inexpensive way to get around. This was the food we ate. They don't have anything that looks like anything in Mexico. Their food is not even close to Mexican food. It's really closer to our food in a sense. But as you can see, rice was kind of a staple, whatever it's. There it was kind of like one of the main things that we ate. I think just about every meal there was rice, although not rice on every single plate. A lot of different kinds of things. Sometimes there was pastas, there was potatoes, other things that we didn't really know what they were, but they looked good and they tasted good. So that was an important thing. And they kept us alive. We had, of course, one of the things too is you have fellowship with brethren. That's one of the good things about going someplace is you get to know people. You get to know brothers and sisters in Christ. And that picture there was I think it was taken on Sunday morning with quite a few of the brethren that were there, and just some different pictures around of different ones, different people, those that went, some that were there, of course, already in Peru as well. But that's one of the good things, or that's one of the things that God has given to us as far as Christians, is the fellowship that we can have with one another. And so it's not only just going and doing, but it's also going and also having that relationship or that fellowship that we have with people as well, and getting to know people, and getting to know the preacher, getting to know his family or other members of the church in that congregation, and working with them side by side. Those are some of the benefits too, or the blessings, you might say, of being able to go into a place overseas or in another country. And so this kind of is the reason, Mark chapter 16 verse 15, go into all the world and preach the gospel and according to the words of Jesus, and we had that opportunity to do so. And again, I'm thankful for that. We were, in spite of the problems that they had in their country, we really weren't affected by it, only for just a little bit when we didn't know what was going to happen. But other than that, We didn't have any roads blocked for us. The airport wasn't blocked. There were no problems for us. And so we know that God was able to bless us with safety and to be able to come home and do the work that He wanted us to do, which we're thankful for. So the message, or the other part of that message, is he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. And maybe there's a person here tonight that has not yet done that. Has not yet. Maybe you believe, but you've not yet completed that obedience by responding, by repenting. Or maybe you've repented, but maybe you just simply need to confess your faith and to be baptized into Christ. And if you'd like to do that tonight, we ask you to come as we stand and sing.
The fountain free, 'tis for you and me. Let us